Lovely. So good morning, everyone. My name's Sian Wilkins. I'm a paediatric cardiac scientist in Bristol, and I'm third year HSST. So in terms of becoming a leader, for many people, not everyone, it's a natural progression in their clinical career, but you could go down a clinical leadership route, or it could be going more towards the strategic management pathway. It's not something that everyone has to do by any means, but the opportunities are there if you want them. And just touching on Sarah's presentation, believe in yourself and jump. So why are we doing this? As I've said, it isn't for everyone, and you shouldn't feel pressure to move up the ladder. Decades of clinical experience and ability are hugely valuable, but if you see yourself clinical for the rest of the career, then that's brilliant. We all moan in the staff room about how easy it would be to solve something, and leadership gives you the ears of the people with the influence and the resources to enable that change. But it can also teach you something that isn't easy, or it teach you why something isn't easy or possible, which is what you wouldn't necessarily see from a clinical perspective. Also, for me, it's a bit of a fallback. I don't want to be clinical for the rest of my life, and I've made my peace with that. I really enjoy my line management role. I've had quite a few orthopedic issues that mean I don't want to be doing CPR at 75. And believe me, there is a cath lab nurse that I work with that is still doing CPR, and she is 75. So in terms of developing your skills as a leader, firstly, watch, listen and learn. If you decide you want to move towards leadership and management, you position yourself ahead of time. Don't just focus on what's wrong, see what's going right too, and what can be harder to see. This is what needs to be harnessed and encouraged in departments. There are lots of free trust courses. Hopefully in your trust, there certainly are in mine. If it's like my trust, it's open to anyone and it's an e-learning format, so nobody needs to know your intention if you don't want them to. There's plenty of university-based healthcare courses as well. There's a lot of senior management courses in my trust that have taken this route and have not worked clinically or otherwise in healthcare before being appointed. There's also NHS Learning Academy courses in leadership. Sorry, that should say NHS Leadership Academy, of course, and of course the HSST. But remember, you don't have to be in leadership or management to be a leader. It does allow complex alliances and networks. It takes time, but if you get your name and your face out there, it's brilliant. It's easier now in the age of online meetings because you can attend those meetings, you can listen to perspectives and understand different points of view. Just people seeing your name and your face will start to instill trust and confidence in you, and you'll gradually become involved in more projects, thus increasing your influence. Also, cross-team and cross-function works by demonstrating your adaptability and your flexibility to enact change. If you show that you're willing to embrace change and at least investigate the possibility, people start to see you in a leadership light. And you can sit at the back of these meetings and just quietly demonstrate your brilliance as the need arises. So what kind of leader do you want to be? There's loads of different leadership styles, and you've probably encountered most of them in healthcare. As I talk through them, just have a think about which resonates most in a healthcare setting. There aren't any right or wrong answers. It's all a personal choice, whether you're Donald Trump or Mother Teresa. But think about the best leader you've ever had. What style were they? And also, what were the worst leaders? What traits did they have? So the situational leader adapts to the unique situation. Leaders can react spontaneously to the particular scenario and can bend and flex. However, changing leadership styles in one process can be quite confusing to the staff, and it's easy to lose sight of the long-term objective in this style. Distributional leaders all share responsibility for the successes and failures of the team with the three key principles of autonomy, accountability and capacity. They're all equally important and all interdependent, and it encourages teamwork and ownership of a task. But the problem with that is unbalanced power struggles can fester, and issues over authority, influence and decision-making power can develop between multiple people sharing different leadership responsibilities. Transactional leader is very much, I give you this, you give me that. Everyone knows where they stand, and there are clear expectations, rewards, and punishments in this situation. And it's great for achieving the long-term goals, motivating employees, and ensuring accountability. But it can stifle creativity, it can reduce employee engagement, and it focuses on the short-term goal and not the long-term vision. The transformational leader seeks to change the group by empowering employees to innovate. It's all about finding better ways to help others, patients and colleagues. You'll find that your staff have autonomy, breathing room to innovate, but the desire to innovate can ruffle the feathers of those that aren't comfortable with change. And we all work with one of those. Servant leaders serve first and lead second. They channel the majority of energy into finding ways to help others. They focus on elevating and developing followers rather than their own status and power. It's good for morale as it promotes a high level of trust, but it's not good for your own development. The democratic leader emphasises collaborative decision-making and promotes that collaborative working style, and everyone feels involved and valued, but it can be really time-consuming and costly when there are too many inputs. The autocratic leader is very my way or the highway. It dictates what to do, when and how. Teams are kept on track towards their objective as decisions are made quickly and efficiently, but teams can feel ignored, restricted, and even sometimes abused. Bureaucratic leader is very by the book. It's a bit of a tick boxing exercise. They need to follow a set of rules and systems. This situation is very, very stable, it's systematic, it's consistent, but inflexible, uncreative and restrictive, and it may fall into the, well, we've always done it this way, so why would we change it? Then you have the laissez-faire approach, which is very hands-off, leave it be, it's fine if it ain't broke. It's the total opposite of micromanagement. The tools and resources are provided, but the staff make the decisions, they solve their own problems. Staff feel empowered and emboldened by the level of trust and independence given to them, but it can cause absolute chaos. Finally, the charismatic leader has magnetic personality, a lot of conviction, but these leaders use eloquent communication and persuasion to unite a team around a cause. They are able to clearly lay out a vision to get others excited about the same goal, and they're very inspirational and effective at getting the entire group to invest in a shared objective, but it's easy for leaders to develop tunnel vision and lose sight of other important issues. So when you're finding your feet, you're there because you should be. You need that self-belief to enable those you lead to believe in you. It is daunting, but peers, just don't lose sight of why you got there in the first place. You're there because of your clinical ability, you're there because of your morals, your ethics and your values, and you're there because of your sheer potential. And those of your peers who you may have worked with for a very long time will start to see you in a different light. They may speak to you differently. They may regard you differently once you become a line manager to them, and you may be excluded from conversations or social things happening in the department. It doesn't feel nice, but it's okay, and it's a good thing to welcome, as there are some new boundaries that need to be respected so that people don't take advantage of your past friendship. It is hard. We spend more of our time with our colleagues than we do with our own families, so keep speaking to those in the same positions, because the chances are they feel it too. And keep speaking to those that you love and trust, and your true allies will stay with you regardless of your newfound status. And surround yourself with positive influence, and it doesn't mean your best friends, but it's those that believe in you. They don't need to necessarily agree with you, and sometimes it's good to have that two-way conversation, but they need to believe that you have their best interests in mind. So emotional intelligence is your ability to read the room. It's really important to consider this. Leading doesn't make you immune to emotion, particularly mindful of this in healthcare. It's also good to be able to recognise when emotion is negatively impacting a member of staff. For example, there is a member of staff that I work with in paediatrics who becomes quite involved in the patient and becomes really affected when we have an unwell patient, and it's important to recognise that her feelings and emotions are valid, and it's how we support her in managing those feelings. Also, use the stop technique. It's really good for reacting and debriefing a situation. So you stop, you take a breath, you think, you get in touch with how you're feeling without judgment, without judging yourself. and then proceed, then carry on. And it's really good for just taking down the tone and the pace of a situation. Oh, I've jumped. I do apologise. Okay, so just taking it a step back. So my journey started off as a student medical technical officer, as we were then, and I qualified from that in 2005. I then went through a self-funded master's. After 10 years in adults, I then moved to paediatrics. And after 10 years in peds of not really progressing any further, I felt completely uninvested in, to the point where I said to my manager, if you don't support me and put me through the HSST, I will go somewhere that will. So he did, and I started on the HSST. Quite early on, I think it was in my first year, I proposed a management structure idea, because we had no cardiac rhythm management representation at a senior level. We had a head of department, we had two echo leads and a fetal echo lead, and there was no voice in anything non-echo. To my amazement, my proposal was accepted at board level. It was applied, interviewed formally, and I was appointed. However, I was the only candidate, so it was more of a case of, you didn't employ me, you were stuck with me. Certainly how I felt at the time. Which brings me on to the elephant in the room. I'm not going to talk in any depth of imposter syndrome as Sarah did, which was fantastic. But if you're wondering how you got there, and you have feelings of self-doubt and feeling that you have a level of incompetence and feeling like you don't belong there, as we've heard this morning, is really, really common. And according to the Devon Wellbeing Hub, 70% of employees in healthcare and social care experience this at some point in their career. And to be honest, I suspect that's underestimated, that's 70% of people that will admit to it. I suspect vast majority of us have at some point. And as leaders, as you're developing what kind of style you'd like to be, it's important to recognise it and own it. So a good leader will have this sense of imposter syndrome, and it's okay to have that. But you will also recognise yourself and all the clinical ability that you have and everything you know, but you'll also recognise the ability of everybody else and everything they know. But where it doesn't help is when you have a sense of entitlement as a leader, because of you think your knowledge and your experience and everything else that you know is more important than everybody else's, which is what's put you in that position. That is not true. And good leaders will recognise that they have imposter syndrome. They'll equally consider their own knowledge and that of others, and accept that it's a normal feeling and manage it. Just briefly, as I say, I know Sarah has gone into great detail about this, but again, recognise and challenge your negative thoughts and feelings. Focus on your achievements and celebrate them. Sing from the rooftops. In our staff meetings, we have there every 2 weeks, we have a section on staff achievements, and that is there to sing for everyone, whether they want us to or not, but we sing the successes. Also seek feedback from others. I do a regular 360 appraisal on myself and badger people into replying to them. And yes, it does point out where you may be able to improve, but it does also reinforce that you're there because you should be, and you're doing a good job. You're doing a great job. Also embrace continuous learning. You don't want to come back to this sense of entitlement where you know everything and that's why you're there. Keep learning, keep developing, and accept that maybe the way that you've operated in the past might not be suitable for the current environment. Also, seek support from your mentors and your trusted colleagues. They're there to help you. Just one final thing that I've learned actually through the course of the HSST. So when I started the HSST, I was a band 7. And towards the end of my first year, I was put up into that band 8 position, and I suddenly became a manager. And your sense of support does shift slightly. So I did find having difficult conversations difficult, and speaking to those that I line manage in a different way. My manager suggested journaling, which I found really, really helpful. It's a great excuse for new stationery for a start. But as you start to move more into a leadership role and you're exposed to situations that you haven't been previously, start a journal and write down the situations and how they affected you, the good and the bad. Think about how you reacted, how you responded, how could you have done it differently? Why would you not do it differently again? What went really well? And what have you learned from that situation that you can put into practice the next time it arises? And I've used this, and I've gone back in my book and thought, right, this situation happened before. How did I respond? How can I do it differently? Who should I engage in conversation? How should I talk to them better next time? And I've found this really incredibly useful, particularly when you're starting out in leadership. And also how to develop your style. Once you read back through your journal, you start to realize that you are following a particular style of leadership. Maybe you follow one style in one situation and another in another situation, and that's okay. So I'll finish there, and I thank you very much for your time and attention.